Welcome, guys, to session number 4 of the Carnivore Evolution podcast, a podcast dedicated to help you on your health and fitness journey. Today's guest is Amy. She will talk us through her struggles with her hormones and how an animal-based diet is going for her. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Amy, how are you today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Did
Yeah.
everything go through there?
Yeah.
And you heard the start, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know what. Okay, so how are you today, anyway?
I'm good.
I'm
I'm
good.
going well. I am having a good day.
That's amazing. What's the weather like over there today?
Quite muggy and hot. Like it's like 20, what is it? It was about 27, 20 or 25 today. I don't know
Wow.
what that is,
Wow.
Yeah. It's just really muggy at the moment. It's kind of
Yeah.
coming into summer.
It's crazy. Like it's Christmas and it's just summer holidays.
Yeah. It gets hotter and hotter.
That's crazy. Yeah. I've been watching a program over here called I'm a Celebrity. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
And like you can see the weather over there is incredible.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, so I just wanted to get you on this podcast to talk about your how you started the carnivore. So take me back how it all started for you, about your struggles and how you thought that this way of eating was going to help you then going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I was having lots of issues hormonally, as well as weight. And I also had a bit of an issue where if I didn't eat nearly every hour, I'd get a bit dizzy. So someone else had tried the carnivore diet and suggested I try it too. And I said, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing it. So it is, just eating, like meat and fats and all of that. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. But I was doing a gluten-free, dairy-free diet. And at the time, nothing was changing. I was actually putting on more weight because I was eating a lot of gluten-free, dairy-free cookies, they're absolutely terrible for you. But I'm like, they're healthy, right? So I said, I'll try this carnivore thing for a week, see how I go. That was April, not the one just gone, the one before that. So I started off, and in the first month, I reckon I got down about 10 kilograms. And I was like, all right, I like this. I'm going to stay on this for a bit. I did over the next few months travel around Australia. So I went off the diet just because ease of traveling. But when I got back in September, I was like, right, I'm getting onto it. I've got to make changes. I want to be more strict. And then started eating more of the, like beef, butter, bacon, eggs, type, more strict carnivore. And I, for a lot of years, have had a lot of trouble with really horrific period pain. I believe I have endometriosis, but it was never diagnosed. And my cycle is all over the place. I'll have like a 21-day cycle or a 43-day cycle, and I never know what the next day is going to bring for me hormonally. And when that's messed up, it can cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and the ups and downs in your emotions. As I got more and more into carnivore, I started listening to other creators and listening to other people saying, oh, it got rid of my pains, my period pains, it got rid of my endometriosis. And a lot of people had said that, and I hadn't had that yet. So I was a little bit disheartened because I'm like, why am I not getting these same results? And I came across the Dr. Keltz, and he did some live videos And I asked him, I said, why am I not getting the same results as other people? I'm doing this strict. And he said, just keep going. Keep going. Beef, eggs, butter, bacon, intermittent fasting, and salt. It's like his baby's thing he has. Because at the time I was, looking at trying to conceive, so I wanted hormonally things to go well, but also get past the horrific pains. And so I kept going. As suggested by him, I upped my butter, upped my fats. What a lot of people and a lot of women don't understand when they start the carnivore diet is it's a high fat diet, not a high protein diet. So it's important to have the less lean meats. I really steer clear of things like chicken because it's too lean, and have the fattier meats. And where the meat's not fatty, I just cover it in butter. So, and I have coffee and my iced coffees with butter and egg yolk. So it's increasing my fat intake, and a little bit longer of just doing that really strict, upping the butter, upping the fats, and doing more intermittent fasting. My cycles became pretty normal, 28 days. Instead of being curled over in pain for 3 days, I have a little bit of pain, but it's not too bad. It's manageable. And I know when I go off the carnivore diet, because I do have little cheat meals here and there, and I always feel terrible after. I feel bloated and not quite right, but it does affect me hormonally. So I know when I stick to this animal-based diet, it is so much better. I probably rambled in a lot of little pockets of information.
No, that's fine. That's completely fine. Now, this was the reason why I wanted to get you on, Amy, because, like you mentioned, women like to focus on too much on calories and weight loss, but they don't understand by doing that they're destroying their hormones. And when people are going through these cycles, they don't understand that by doing this damage of just focusing on low calorie food, low fat food, being on a weight loss program, they don't understand the damage they're doing to their body. And this is the reason why when I saw your video last week and you called out the guy about being on a meat-based diet, how it's actually changed your life, I was like, I need to get this woman on, and I need to let people actually hear what's going on in the world and how an animal-based diet is actually changing a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, it really is. For women who have period pains and endometriosis, have been curled over with pain for a few days every single month, not knowing when that day is going to come. It's detrimental to your life and to your work. And the fact that it is so minimal now, since starting carnivore, even when I've been on and off, I stopped counting calories, stopped worrying about what I was the amounts of food. I would just eat when I'm hungry. I previously mentioned that I had this problem where I'd get dizzy if I didn't eat after an hour. That was like a carb addiction. I don't have that anymore. I can fast for a full day and do the one meal a day. I have done longer fasts, but I find them a little bit tricky. But that one meal a day I can do with ease. I can go to work. I can do exercise and then do that intermittent fasting and extended fast a lot easier since starting carnivore. And for women who have been counting calories since I was 15, it's so bad. It's so bad for you mentally to be constantly figuring out what you can and can't eat, and making up these little rules if I have this, I'll be able to have that, and if I have that, I'll be able to have that. And it's just not a healthy way of becoming well. And this particular diet is the first time I've been able to let go of the calorie counting, let go of the food noise, that food noise of like, what am I going to eat tonight? What am I going to eat tomorrow? When am I going to eat that? And all of that just completely disappeared.
Mm.
I do still have issues with when I go off the diet because I've, probably got a bit of binge eating disorder, but and overdo it with some foods that are not the best. But when I get back onto carnivore, I know that I feel good. I'm able to stick to it. And finding different ways to be creative about the different foods that you do eat, like making the carnivore bread type things that I have been trying and making little like iced coffees and things. It helps you keep going.
And just going back to the pains, what was the diagnosis? What were you told? Like, how did you actually learn about this yourself? Like, how did you get out of this yourself? Like, what were people saying to you in the past? What you had to do?
Well, a lot of women don't know that they have endometriosis because I just assumed that the pains that I had, every woman had them. Like all women had these pains that they were like shooting, stabbing, cramping pains. I just thought everyone did. So since I was probably about 13, having these bad pains nearly every single month, and sometimes it would last for 3 days and you can barely function. I just thought, oh, well, that's normal. That's just what everyone has. It wasn't until my sister got diagnosed with endometriosis that I thought I might have it too. And I was going to see a specialist, and the only way to get diagnosed is if they go like physically in there and remove what is not supposed to be there. So I was going to move towards doing that, but that was also at the same time as when I became a lot more strict on carnivore and then stopped getting the pain. So I ended up going, oh well, I don't need to be diagnosed anymore and have that surgery. I was able to just, change it with diet. So I was never actually diagnosed, but I believe that that's what it was.
And what do you think the main factor was? It was down. What do you think it was down to? Like inflammation? What do you think it was down to?
Yeah, definitely. When I was at a time before carnivore, I was seeing an acupuncturist and Chinese herbalist, and she had told me a lot of times your body is inflamed. And we tried different things to reduce inflammation, which was why I got off dairy and gluten to start with. But she didn't particularly agree with the high meat intake diet. It's not necessarily something that fit her beliefs. But when I did it, I am like, my body is functioning better than it has ever functioned before. And it's hard to explain the specifics without being too gross. But like for yourself, different things that happen to women throughout their cycle, which is considered normal, was all askew. And now I feel like I go through the phases of a cycle really smoothly. So I know this week is, period week. This week is when I'm going to ovulate. This is when, my body is, wanting to be just like, it changes your energy. So, when you go through that phase, you're more energetic, and then post ovulation, luteal phase. And it doesn't mean you don't necessarily have to want to conceive to better understand your cycle. Better understanding your cycle and how your body changes and your mind changes throughout the cycle is so, so valuable. And you can figure that out by just simply taking a temperature every morning, which I did for several years, which I've stopped now because I know my body's working. I don't necessarily am not now looking to conceive, but I actually feel like if that was something I wanted to try again, that I would have a better chance because of the way my body's responding to this. Yeah.
And why do you feel when you hear so many stories that none of this can be reversed, none of this can be controlled? Pretty much you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. You're going to need surgery. You're not going to be able to conceive. Why do you feel we hear all this?
I think doctors are a bit shit sometimes. They don't actually know. They don't have all the information, or they gather pieces of information from a specific thing that they believe to be true, and then they just run with it forever, and that's what they tell you. There's a particular hormone in your body called follicle stimulus hormone. And when you are when you want to do things like IVF or you're trying to conceive, you want it to be low. Like, so you want it to be under 10. And at one point, mine was up at around 18, 19, 20. And they said, you can't change that. You cannot change that. And through acupuncture, through this animal-based diet, I was able to get it down to 6,
Wow.
which follicle stimulus hormone, it basically is your body is trying to find an egg. So it releases this hormone. So the more hormone that's released, that means I can't find an egg. And so the fact that it was quite a lot lower, and all of these doctors saying you've got no chance in hell, it's not going to happen for you. You cannot change your FSH, you cannot change, AMH, which is another one. And I was able to change that with, with diet and with acupuncture. And it just makes me think that, doctors don't know everything. When you tell them you're doing a carnivore diet, they'll tell you about heart disease and, clogged arteries and all of that stuff. But from everything I've read and everything I've heard, it's helping inflammation and it's helping our bodies. And there's a lot of things out there, especially when it comes to women, that is not researched enough. It's not acknowledged enough. There's just so much that doctors don't actually know, that I think that there's a lot of guesswork, and it sucks because they're the experts. They're the people we're going to with our complete trust, and them saying to you, you don't have a chance in hell of conceiving. And you're like, well, that completely just changes my entire life and what that means for me and my future, because of different circumstances that, I've, moved away from wanting that, but not for lack of trying after, a number of years. And right now, when my body's working perfectly fine and I feel like my body could be in the best state to conceive, it's not something I'm actually looking at the moment because I've gotten a few years older and, I don't necessarily want to change my lifestyle. But, it's just, it sucks when doctors tell you stuff because they don't have all the answers. And I was told once that when it comes to nutrition, doctors out of their full 7 years do about a day in nutrition. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard.
Yeah, and this is the biggest frustration I have, because at the end of the day, the body is great at actually healing itself. And what really frustrates me is that a lot of people are getting pushed towards the medication route. And it's like, okay, how young are you in the first place? And how long are you going to be on these medications for? Like, are you actually going to try a different way? Are you actually going to listen to other people? Or are you just going to be listening to people and listening to what they're talking about and letting them read the research? Whereas when I listen to people like yourself, and there are thousands of other people that are doing the same, it's like, what other research do you want? These people are actually doing it. They're thriving. They've changed their lives. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear the stories from other people around the world, which I hear most of the stories on TikTok. And there are people with so much more information, like yourself, and knowledge about this. And even though I've been doing this particular way of eating for such a long time now, I don't claim to be an expert. I just know what it's done for me and my body, and hearing the stories of other people going, this was so great and this worked so well. And then friends are like, oh, I might try it. Oh, I might not. Oh, I don't think it's healthy. Oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to send a bad message to my children. And I'm like, you're sending a good message to your children that crash dieting doesn't work. Okay, calorie deficits don't work. Eating healthy, and like I used to eat these protein cookies all the time when I was dieting. So it was like they're just so bad. They're mostly all sugar. They've got hardly any protein in it. And why didn't someone eat a couple of boiled eggs and a bit of steak? That would have been way better. I wish I found this earlier, to be honest, and I think my life would have been a lot different if I had.
And isn't it incredible that when you look at the recommendation, they're saying like 60% of our recommendation diet should come from a macronutrients that's not even essential.
Yeah. It's, I just am blown away by how much misinformation is out there. And we seem like the crazy ones who are waving the meat and fat flag and going, this is good, I swear. But, just going back to that, I was watching a video and some woman was saying about fad diets and carnivore diet. And I'm like, this is not what our bodies were designed for. I'm like, it was what our bodies were designed for. That's what we started with. And then, all of the other stuff and the grains and vegetables and all of that were brought into it. And then we needed to introduce things like fiber because our bodies were so stuffed up with all the carbohydrate. I crash dieted for years. I would do the shake diets. I do the, over the counter pills. I do the prescription pills, and nothing worked. I one diet lost like 30 odd kilos, and then I put on 40, a year later. I actually had gastric sleeve surgery and lost quite a lot of weight doing that, and that is what caused my problem with getting dizzy all the time, having to eat nearly every hour. And you progressively, over maybe about 5 years after, start putting the weight back on. Other people I know who have had like bariatric surgery, gastric sleeve, and so on, they eventually put the weight back on, and this diet helped, or this way of eating helped stop that. And I lost about 22 kilograms on carnivore over from the time I started. I'm probably up and down. Sometimes I go up and down about 3 or 4. It's just the nature of right now. There'll be some Christmas thing or some get together. I'll go off it for a couple of days and I'll go back on it. But I always feel 100% better when I'm on it.
And when you were mentioning, you were saying something earlier about food noise. What was the biggest struggle you had with food noise? Why do you feel like, okay, I had to eat every couple of hours, I couldn't stop, and now that I'm only eating once a day, what was the shift? What was the mind shift?
Something just disappears. Like when you are dieting and you're restricting calories, you're thinking about your next meal all day. It consumes most of the day. If I'm not like consumed with something at work, I'm thinking about my next meal. I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat, how I'm going to cook it, where I'm going to get it. Is it going to be, like contributing this much towards calories or this much towards calories? And something happened, and I don't necessarily think it is the it's not necessarily because I stopped counting calories. Something happens to your brain on the carnivore diet where you are a lot more clearer. You start having this shift that food is fuel rather than food is like the having that FOMO around food, having that fear of missing out on every single meal. If I don't have this, I won't be able to have that, and have that, I won't be able to have that. It takes all of that away, and it's something that naturally happens. I didn't do anything. All of a sudden, just the food noise disappeared, and when I think about having dinner, I'm like, will I eat some ground beef or will I have a steak? But it's more about you still want it to taste good and you still want it to be, feeling a nice flavor, but it's not necessarily, it's so different. It's just, I think it does something to your brain, makes you happier, makes you have the noise just disappears, and it frees up a lot of time in the day. So got to fill in that time with other things.
Absolutely. And I think this is the main reason why weight loss diets just don't work, because of that reason. It's mainly down to hunger. You're going to restrict yourself. You're going to restrict yourself. You're going to restrict yourself. And the more you keep on doing that, you're going to make yourself miserable. And when you look at what people are doing, like you mentioned at the very, very beginning, a lot of people will take out the carbohydrates. They'll just focus on protein, and just eating vegetables. But that's not a great way of getting your energy in.
No. I think with the protein thing, I've heard that it can, that's not necessarily that good. It's not necessarily that good with women. My mum doesn't like anything with fat in it. She's very against fat. And I will tell her about carnivore and she's like, I'm really rapt that you're doing well. But then she says, oh yeah, I did a high protein diet years ago and I lost heaps of weight and, really shredded. And I keep saying, Mum, it's a fat diet. It's a high fat diet. And she's like, yeah, the protein diet. People don't like the idea of fat. They don't like the word fat. It is really mentally hard to wrap your head around. And I feel that might be stronger in women. I just, as a woman, because, we are our image and we are of our body because of society and how we're treated. So the word fat and the idea of fat, it is so damaging that when someone says eat lots of fat, it just messes with your head. That was really hard to get my head around at first. But now I'm completely fine with it. I don't necessarily like, like on a steak when it's really like the jelly-ish sort of fat. I find that a little bit hard to eat only because I've been brought up on such a lean way of eating. But I overcook it so it's crispy. So cook all the fat till it's crispy. Add butter to everything. Having butter and egg yolk coffees, I know it sounds gross, but it is the best. Like, I have it every day, have it a couple of times a day. I'll just have decaf late, and you can have it iced, hot. It's just the best. It's such a great way to get in the extra fat.
Yeah, and I find that the more fat that I eat, I just function way better. I just remember that when I used to eat a lot of carbohydrates, if I ate a carbohydrate in the morning, I'd be wanting to have a nap about 2 hours later. Whereas now, if I have a big meal and it contains an awful lot of fat in it, I know when I finish that meal, I'm satisfied, and when I wake up the next day, if anything, I'm gonna feel absolutely amazing. I'm gonna have so much energy.
Yeah, energy. You feel like your tummy's flat. Your brain has more clarity. It's so much better. When I sometimes go to work events, they cater, and at a work event a few months ago, they had cookies, and I just decided I'm gonna eat one. I haven't had a cookie in months. I'm gonna have a cookie, and then I ate three. I so like an hour later, I was like, I need a nap. I am tired. I was just wrecked, and like my brain couldn't function. And yeah, it was terrible, terrible.
Mm. And how are things going for you now? Like, what does a typical day of eating look like now at the moment?
Typical day of eating is I start my morning with a butter and egg yolk coffee. I usually wait until lunchtime-ish to eat. Um, I'll eat something. Usually I have eggs. I'll have like 3 or 4 eggs fried in butter. If I've got some sort of meat, I do eat a bit of pork. I might cook up a bit of pork or a bit of ground pork, ground beef, and mix it in with the fried egg. That's kind of nice. Um, I do snack a little bit more than I should, but usually snacking on like bacon. I probably need to reduce my cheese the last couple of days because I made carnivore bread, the cloud bread. I've been having cheese toasties. So it's been like, nom, nom, nom. It's such a change.
Yeah, yeah.
To have something so bread-like that is not bread. It's crazy. But yeah, and then for dinner, I'll usually have some like a steak or lamb chops, or I really like pork belly slices. I just, yeah, and pork belly is very like rich and fatty, and it's just so yum. I do add a bit of herbs and spices like chili. I've been craving chili a lot more. I think it's something to do with my metabolism working,
Mm.
and use a bit of, lots of salt on everything. Salt on everything. That's another thing you have to wrap your head around, fat and salt, because if you are on this carnivore way of eating, if you have too much salt, your body just wheezes it out.
Mm.
You're not retaining salt, and trying to explain that to someone, like, if you're having carbohydrates, you're retaining water, therefore you're
Exactly, yeah.
retaining the salt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, I can have as much salt as I want, and it's not bad. So
Yeah.
that's kind
And
of
I think, I think you brought up a good point there, because I don't think people understand how important the electrolytes are when you're on
mm,
an animal based diet.
yeah,
Because of that reason, you're losing so much glycogen in the muscle, you're losing so much water. So it's vitally important that you replenish that as quick as possible. And that's the reason why electrolytes and adding your meals with salt is extremely important.
yeah. Sometimes just a bit of salt in the soda water or in water, if it helps to. That actually helps get me through fasts as well. If I'm
Mm.
fasting and I want to last a bit longer, I'll have a bit of salt. But yeah, I have an electrolyte drink. I'm not sure how good it is. Try to get something that doesn't have too much fake sugars or anything. A lot of them are like red frog flavor or grape flavor.
Mm.
There are like all these things because they want it to be tasty. I'm like, I just want the electrolytes. Can you just give me something that's
Mm.
plain? And they don't often make anything. So I've got one now that's okay. It's not too bad. It's not too sweet.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of brands out there, like you mentioned,
Mm,
that'll say electrolytes in them, but when you look at the ingredients, you can clearly see there's one or two nasty ingredients in there that are
yeah.
going to do an awful lot of damage.
Yeah, definitely. This one I've got is like electrolytes and BCAAs. I don't know. They told me it was good. I
Mm.
hope so. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to like look
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the main thing when you have these drinks and you're noticing like an hour later, hang on a second, I'm walking around bloated. Why am I walking
Yeah,
around bloated? Why do I have these digestive issues?
exactly. Yeah. Um, it's funny because when you have stuff like, say you have pizza, which people would consider as a high salt food, you wake up really thirsty. So there's that thing in people's brain that they, when I was adding salt to my water, one of my friend's kids said, won't that make you more thirsty? And I'm like, no, that's not how salt works. And, explaining about carbs and all of that, but also that having that salt does help your body retain a bit of the water so you stay hydrated to a good degree.
Yeah.
So, which is good. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then alongside that, then if you're having the salty meals and you're having the pizzas, you've got to take in consideration the amount of carbohydrate you're taking in with as well. And that's what's going to fill up the body with a lot of water and an awful lot of inflammation, and that's where it all starts.
Definitely.
That's where that's and then when we mentioned the difference between fats and carbohydrates, I think that's the biggest thing. One, you're going to be inflamed a lot by eating too much carbohydrates, whereas fats, you're not going to get that spike in insulin as high as you would from eating carbohydrates.
Yeah. It's just, it makes so much sense. The more you research and the more you hear people's stories and just going back to basics, the more it makes sense. And it's just wrapping your head around and unlearning information that you've been learning since you were born. Like our house was full of diet stuff and light everything our entire lives. And, my sisters were on diets in what was grade 5, when they were 10. So it is, the current dieting and current calorie restrictions and calorie deficit and all that doesn't work. It doesn't work. If it worked, then we'd all be really fit.
Yeah.
We'd all be like super well, and it wouldn't be like 80+% of Australia being overweight.
Yeah. That's another good point. Where you look around, you look at the population. The population are suffering from obesity, from metabolic disorders, diabetes. It's all gone through the roof, but we're all on a low-fat diet.
Yeah. So many women who have autoimmune disorders, who in this little, group of women I found on TikTok, a lot of them had these autoimmune disorders and were able to fix their problems with carnivore and taking it as it is, as an elimination diet, taking away all that other stuff. And then they did introduce things, but then they were able to see when their body is inflamed and what that food that would do that for them. So it's the first time in your life you're actually seeing what foods are doing to your body and how it's making you react. So I go okay with blueberries, but onions make me gassy. So you go, I know what they're doing for my body.
And this is why it's very important, Amy, that we don't give up the fight and we keep on speaking out, because there's so many people out there that are suffering. And this was the reason why I was so eager to getting you on. And I'm going to keep on doing this because I know in my country, I don't know about your country, but in my country, if you mention the word carnivore or keto, it's like you're going to kill people. You're one of those people that, listen, if you keep on doing this, you're going to give people heart disease. You're going to give people heart attacks. You need to stop doing this. And I think it's very important that we need to educate people the right way and say, listen, hang on a second. We've been doing this for too long now. We're doing this way too long. We're listening to the wrong people. If it was the case, then, as I mentioned, we would have been all suffering. We're all on a low-fat diet. We're all scared of saturated fats. We're all scared of eating fat because they contain too many calories. But they don't realize, like we mentioned at the very, very beginning, we need to move away from calories and just focus more on our health instead of weight loss all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is a key to this is the focus. While it initially starts as potentially weight loss, it quickly shifts to feeling well and feeling well all the time. Look, in
Mm,
Australia, if you do mention carnivore, people kind of, bank it in with keto. And
mm,
you say, yeah, it's, similar to that. But it's more like, oh, it's a short-term thing, or,
mm,
oh, I couldn't do that forever.
mm,
And, but I'm like, you don't have to do it forever. But trying it and seeing how your body reacts to it and feeling well, properly well, like your body is functioning better than it ever has for the first time ever,
mm,
like, wouldn't you want to try that? Like, wouldn't you
mm.
want to see if that works? Because,
Absolutely.
yeah, people say like, oh, the high fat, and you, and it's so bad, and oh, you're going to kill people, and clogged arteries, and all of that. But nobody bats an eyelid when they're going down to the shops and getting junk food and eating
Mm,
pizza and driving through the, Kentucky Fried Chicken and,
mm,
all of the different things that people do in secret or outside of the norm. People go, "Oh, I'm eating healthy today. I'm eating healthy. I'm just having like a like Mexican, or I'm eating healthy. I'm having something with noodles and rice." And I'm like, I think the skewed idea of what healthy is just, yeah, it's good to continue to share that message and share this, and it's just, you just like, just try it for
mm.
fun,
Well,
try
see,
it for
the problem is it's all about the power of addiction.
mm,
People just cannot give up their favorite food. They can't
yeah,
understand why they can give up their favorite food. And when you look at your plate, I don't think people can get past of just looking at your plate and seeing like a steak on it or a piece of beef, or without having a piece of carbohydrate or a bit of vegetables, because we were all taught that we should have everything on our plate. We should have a little bit of carbohydrate, a little bit of protein, a little bit of fiber, and a little bit of fat. I think
yeah.
people are just too brainwashed into how much they need to have on their plate.
Yeah, we used to have that plate diagram, and it had a little triangle for meat, it had a
Mm,
little triangle for like potatoes, and then it had this big part for like salad and veggies. And yeah, it is hard to get past that. I still find it tricky if I'm out at like a restaurant and all I've got on my plate is a steak, and it looks a bit sad
mm,
sometimes. They cut it a little bit thin in Australia, and when you're out and you've got this thin piece of steak on a plate with nothing else, it's a little bit sad.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it tastes good and it makes me feel good, and I have to get used to doing that more, because that's been my issue lately, is that fear of missing out. I know I've got a work event tomorrow. I know that there'll be catered food. I'm going to try to bring along my own little meat thing and just have that, because
Mm.
I know I'll feel better for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the same as me. It took me a long time to figure out when I used to go out. Hang on a second. All I'm doing here is just ordering a steak, and then they
Yeah.
bring out the steak on a plate, and it's like, oh my god, I'm just eating a piece of steak.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, like, if a restaurant's good, they'll add things, like, you can say, I'll get some steak with, I don't know, some prawns, and can you cook it in butter?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's very expensive to eat that way. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what the, equivalent over there, but, when you're paying $50 for a steak, um, and all it is this one thin little sad piece of steak, you're like,
Mm.
it feels like it's a little bit too expensive. But I don't know how in your mind chips and salad somehow change that.
Yeah,
So,
but that's
which,
what's happening now with the shops. They're making
mm,
food now so cheap that people have no choice but to buy it.
mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So like you can buy frozen burgers now in a packet that have like a list of like 20 ingredients. It's extremely cheap. And
yeah,
unfortunately, this is what people have to buy because they just can't afford anything else.
mm. I found with food and affording different things, I mean, I don't really restrict myself that much, but having a lot of ground beef, ground pork, meals is a cheaper option. Fasting makes, life a bit cheaper. So,
Mm.
um, and sometimes you can get a lower grade cut of meat that is actually quite a bit fattier, and then you can
Mm.
put in the slow cooker. You can sous vide it. There's different ways of having lower cut, like lower priced and lower grade
Mm.
cuts of meat to make it a little bit cheaper. But when you're not eating out as much, when you're fasting more, when you're not snacking as much and eating every hour, I feel like it works out cheaper.
And it's so much easier when you
Mm,
eat this way to fast. Whereas
yeah,
when you used to eat the carbohydrates, it was impossible. Absolutely impossible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is brilliant like that.
Because you're just able to control your hunger this way.
Mm,
It's like when I eat a meal, okay, I can go for nearly 8 or 10 hours and I don't need to think about eating another meal.
yeah, yeah. I go all right. I usually, if I fast during, if I eat in the evening and then I can fast all day. But if I have something for breakfast or something for lunch, I do often get hungry again. But sometimes it's boredom. And sometimes having a water with some salt or an electrolyte drink can like bypass that, or having some little bit of bacon. Oh,
Yeah, absolutely,
also butter.
absolutely.
Getting used to eating butter, which I used to find so gross and it just did not taste good at all.
Yeah,
Now I'm like cooking with butter. I'm like, bit for me, bit for the pan. Num num num,
yeah,
bit for the pan.
yeah. And I'm the same. I was one of those people that wouldn't be. You'd never ever see me eating like a stick of butter. But now
Yeah,
it's like, wow, I'm doing this every single day,
yeah, exactly.
and it tastes so good. And then people are looking at you and saying, "You're a weirdo."
Yeah, or they're like, oh my God, heart attack waiting to happen. And you're like, actually, no, this is good for me.
Yeah,
And you don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Amy, where can people find you on social media?
I originally started my account as Carnivore Goals, but I changed it recently to Amy Elizabeth Official. So my name, Amy Elizabeth Official, is my handle on TikTok. I do still share videos about carnivore diet and how I'm progressing or different recipes I'm trying. I also like to share about my life, and I also share my singing because I do that on lives. And yeah, so my account evolved over time from carnivore to a bit about me as well.
Yeah, and I've watched your TikTok videos, and I saw it at the start. Like I seen how you used to look like, and wow, that's some transformation.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Like it's
I
absolutely, it's
think I look
absolutely
all
insane.
right for 42.
Mm,
So
yeah, and you're a great singer as well.
thank you. I'm actually hoping to release some music on Spotify, but I have to get some cover art done.
So that's the goal now for the future now to be a musician.
Well, I do it on the side. If people booked me for a show or something, that'd be cool. I'll be like the singing carnivore.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, as I said, Amy, you're doing a great thing, and I think the more you speak out about this, the better, because people are listening, and it's great that you're like just someone like yourself that's going through this. You're like you went through all the issues, and now you're coming out the other side. It's very very inspiring to hear.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me on. This has been fun. I was going to say tonight.
All right, so keep spreading the message, and we'll talk again very very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, bye bye.